Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including the film Leap, which we'll be getting into today. I'm your host, Beatriz Mourad, and today I'm joined by Michelle Anderer.
Hello.
And April Collins.
Hi.
So I have a lot of thoughts on Leap. I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. Very excited. But before we dive in, let me preface this discussion with a very brief synopsis of the film from IMDb for the people who haven't heard of this film. An orphan girl dreams of becoming a ballerina and flees her rural Brittany for Paris, where she passes for someone else and accedes to the position of pupil at the Grand Opera House. Yes, we will be getting into spoilers later on in the podcast. However, I am going to make sure everyone knows when that starts, and we will have a brief non-spoiler discussion to start off the show. And with that being said, let's get into it. Guys, did you like this movie? Let's start with Michelle.
Okay, I didn't know anything about this movie before I watched it. 3 days ago.
I feel like, no joke, I feel like that's the best way to watch this movie. That is the best way.
I watched it 3 days ago as well.
I looked at the promo, I'm like, so it's about flying. Okay, interesting. You're flying a dragon, but with I don't know, flying machines. Interesting, but it was not that at all. This movie is kind of a hot mess. I mean, the dancing sequences were definitely my favorite. I thought those were really well choreographed and really well animated. I like some of the designs of the characters a lot. In terms of the plot, though, and some of the characters existing, but then kind of dropping in and out as the movie saw fit, I have a lot of questions about that, and I'm kind of perplexed at some of the decisions to do with some characters. But I'm sure we'll talk about that in more detail in a minute. So yeah, those are my general impressions. There are some good things. Animation on point, plot kind of question mark there.
Yep. April, what about you?
I feel bad because I was just not I was not impressed with this movie. I went in with a lot of open-mindedness. I hadn't really heard a whole lot about it. It sort of super flew under the radar, and I was even really surprised to hear that it was playing in theaters, and I was like, what, really? How have I not heard about this movie? Because I feel like I'm really in the know when it comes to animation, especially movies and stuff. And so I went in open-minded, the animation, I wish that it had been prettier given the lack of plot behind the movie. I felt like it was all over the place, everything. And I had a lot of questions during the movie. I was really surprised by a lot of things. I don't think I don't know. It was a hot mess to me. So. Yeah. And then, I didn't even look at, the Rotten Tomato ratings or anything else about it. I didn't look at any other reviews. Super open-minded into it. And I was just very disappointed and very underwhelmed by this movie. So.
I really wish that one of us had liked it. I really do.
That would have been interesting. That would have been
an interesting conversation. I feel so bad now because we're gonna tear this movie apart, aren't we? Oh boy. Well, okay. So I was first introduced to the movie. I don't remember if it was Cars 3 or Despicable Me 3 that I went in and I saw the preview, and it was, I don't know, I'm in a similar situation where I tried to keep, because my problem usually is that my expectations are too high. I usually go into a movie expecting too much.
That's how it is for me too.
So okay. I always keep things low. And the thing is, when I saw the trailer for this movie, my expectations didn't go that high. They weren't high, period. I was like, oh God, I know exactly what I'm going to get from this movie just by seeing this trailer. And it's not even that it showed too much or anything, because arguably all the trailers kind of show a lot nowadays. But it just was I got the essence of the movie in those 2 minutes. And I was just I know exactly what's going to happen now. Nothing of this movie is going to surprise me. I kept such a low bar, and the movie struggled to even get there once I finally saw it. I was just like, oh boy, like it's cute, but it's somewhat problematic in certain elements, and it's just I feel like we're gonna title this podcast a hot mess. I feel like that's gonna be a great title.
Hot mess.
Exactly.
Not a good hot mess.
Not a good hot mess.
Yeah. Like just a mess. Just hot mess, just a mess.
Yeah. It was something, to say the very least.
Okay, so before, also, what version did you guys watch? Did you guys watch the US version or the international version?
I saw the US.
Was the international version not having Elle Fanning in it? And like,
no, it did have Elle Fanning, but it didn't have, it had a different Victor, which is, I don't know, I wanted to talk about this because it's weird what they did.
It had a different Victor, and it also had a different, I can't,
yeah, it had
totally
a different,
blanking.
I'll pull it up. It has a different, Victor has a different, that, the villain of this movie, and also the man.
Mom
Latu,
is different.
Yeah, the mom of...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it had... Okay, so... The main person I don't understand why they switched was the voice actor for Victor. Because in the international version, he's played by Dane DeHaan, who, he's in Valerian, the City of a Thousand Planets. He was in the Amazing Spider-Man 2. He was in Kill Your Darlings for people who are more into indie films. He's a more well-known name than Nat Wolff. And usually what animated films do, or at least when they do an American version that's distinct from international, they bring in bigger names, which they did with Mel Brooks and Kate McKinnon. Like, I understood them. I just did not understand why Nat Wolff was the choice until I saw the international trailer just to see how Dane DeHaan sounded. And I was like, whoa, this is not the voice of a young boy. So
oh my god, baby, that was the one I saw that because I kept being like, why does he sound so old? Aren't they like 12? I was so confused.
Elle Fanning already took me a while to get used to because I was like, whoa, that is a deep voice for her face and her like design. But the Dane DeHaan voice, like he's a very kind of like, when you see him, it's like his voice fits his like face. It's like he's a very kind of old yet youthful looking guy. So I understood why they went with Nat Wolff, because I was like, oh, okay, Victor kind of sounds like a kid now. Like he actually has this like energy to him, whereas in the international trailer, granted, it's a very small little snippet we got. He sounded different, and I was like, I'm kind of glad, because usually when you think international version, you think, ooh, this is more posh, I guess. This is more fancy. This is, like, nicer.
It's more authentic.
But I'm glad. I don't know if that makes me more American now, but I'm like, yeah, I'm glad we got this.
Oh, no. Yeah, I think I heard the old guy.
The old guy.
I'm so sorry.
I forgot. That makes so much sense though, because that was really distracting for the first like 10 minutes of the movie. It's like, why do they keep doing this? Why do they bring old people in? They're young people.
Like I would have appreciated it more if they had actually brought in like kids, even teenagers to do the voices. But like all of the cast was just so old, and I was like, why?
I don't know how old Elle Fanning is, because she might be a teenager, like, for all we know.
I'm gonna find out.
And find out about Nat Wolff, too. I mean, no, he can't be. Is he? Maybe. But they have very... Okay, point is, Elle Fanning had a very deep voice in this movie that I was not expecting. I got used to it, but I was like, whoa.
Yeah, apparently she was 19, so she was on the cusp of her. All right,
she passes. Yeah. She passes. Just barely, she passes.
And Nat Wolff is older than her, so I'm just saying.
Okay.
Man. And their guy's like 31, so like, go figure. Yeah, he sounds like an adult man because he is one.
Because he is one.
I don't blame them for wanting to like stretch their acting capabilities. It's just... for voice acting, you gotta go for a youthful voice. Not so much the number, how old they actually are, but the actual voice. And they need to go a little younger if the guy is a little young.
Younger, yeah. Also, how old were these characters? Because I had a lot of problems.
No, I thought and it's like, oh, but they're in love with each other, so like I don't know. And she's going on
spoilers.
Okay.
No.
We'll talk about that
We'll
later.
get that. Don't worry. I have that written down. We're gonna get to that.
Okay.
But yeah,
it seemed ambiguous too.
yeah. It's basically I looked in the Wikipedia page. They don't say the age, but I'm assuming they're like either early teens, or either they're ranging from early teens to mid-teens. I'm assuming they're in that range somehow. Maybe not, because I could also see them be younger.
Okay.
All right, and before we get into spoilers and get into the fun stuff, what did you guys think just visually? I heard, Michelle, I think you said that it was very pretty.
The dancing, like, I love the choreography for the dancing. That was the most into the movie I got, was just seeing, like, her dance around. Even, like, the ridiculous plotness of, like, the dance-off. Like, the dancing in the dance-off was interesting, even though, like, the concept was like, oh, God, we really have to do this right now movie.
Yeah. I will say that I wish there was more of it. Because...
Or dancing?
Yes.
The
Because
dancing, yes.
the international title is called Ballerina.
Yeah.
There was barely any ballet in this. And I read up about how they, like, really tried to mimic her like, this ballerina she was, like, I don't know, a prima ballerina or something at some...
they, like, hired two...
They got, like, a consultant?
Two consultants.
Well, no, they brought professional, like ballerinas, like a male and a female one. They brought them in to, like, dance and, like, so that they could see. And I don't know if they went as far as to, like, do, like, the whole, like, the motion suits or whatever, but they did, like, bring, like, two famous, like, ballerinas. I don't know anything about the ballerina world, but...
Yeah, according to Wikipedia. So according to Wikipedia, and it is footnoted, the filmmakers used keyframe animation of, I'm going to say this wrong, Aurélie Dupont and Jérémy Bellingard. That's the best French I could do.
That's pretty good, though.
Yeah.
But yeah,
you know
they
what?
dance.
I'll clap to that.
Oh yeah, thank you. It's so hard, you guys. It's so hard. But yeah, they are two star dancers of the Paris Opera Ballet. So they work, as I'm assuming, where in the very building that we see in the film, that's where they perform. So I don't know. I just, like, I wish we got more of it. Or, like, they incorporated more of the ballet into the movie, internationally titled Ballerina. I just a little nitpick.
I think there would have been more dancing.
Yeah. And more music.
No, I thought there was too much music.
Oh, no.
There's too much pop music. That was very disconcerting, because it's like, what time period is this? Why does this keep happening?
Yes, I was expecting like all the classical music. No, I kept getting all this, like, modern pop, and I was really confused the whole time.
It was a lot.
I agree. What I mean by more music is I mean more like a score. I wanted more incorporations of the different types of ballets that they do, you know? Not, I can't say who. Well, is it a spoiler?
You wanted more, like, orchestral music.
Exactly.
Or more, even it didn't even have to be, like, an original score, but if they had pulled, like, more, like, orchestral music from, like, you know, just give me some Beethoven or something, like, anything would have sufficed. Like, I was desperate for, like, getting that, like, classical music, like, that ballet, like, feel. And every time they danced, they put in pop music. Like, even with the end, okay, I don't know if that's a spoiler, but even at the end, like, they didn't play music from Swan Lake. They played a pop song. I was like,
oh my God, you're right. Oh my God.
All right.
Awful.
You know what? Let me just give this warning, because before we get too into it, let's just get this warning, because I have to say something, and it's probably a spoiler. Guys, we're going to spoil now. If we haven't already, we're going to spoil. This is your moment to leave. If you don't want to be spoiled, if you actually want to see the movie, leave now.
Get out of here.
I don't want to hear, like, I don't want to hear about, like, oh, you ruined the movie for me, because I promise you the movie's going to probably do that for you. All right, guys, I do not need Demi Lovato in this movie. Like, when I heard that song, I was like, what are they doing? Like, what is this? Where is my Tchaikovsky?
You know what was super surprising is that Carly Rae Jepsen was one of the voices. None of her music. Like, none of it.
Also doesn't make any sense, too, because I was like, okay, if it's Carly Rae Jepsen, I can understand. I can understand why they're gonna want to, like, that's probably why she even, like, decided to take part. I could understand. But at the same time, I was just like, why am I listening to a top 40 hit in a movie about
They weren't
ballet?
even, like, top 40 hits. They were just random, like,
they were like
songs.
They wanted to be top 40. They were not quite there.
Out of the
It was like
oh my god.
It was like a Radio Disney smash hits kind of thing, and I just did not need it. But
no, it was, and there was so many like like those like montage kind of sequences.
Yeah,
they're like, we're gonna play this poppy song while we're getting ready to go to work or what. I mean, not like that, but it was just.
There was a lot of pop songs. There was at least 4, right? Like maybe even
at least.
That's a lot. Usually people restrain themselves to like 1 per movie.
I know.
Like
okay. Now that we can actually talk about spoilers, let's talk about this romance, because Victor is a nice guy TM. Like, Victor is a nice guy TM. Like, he is legit the very guy that everyone is warned about, of like, oh, if you don't like me, then we can't be friends. And it's just like, what? I could not with Victor. Like, even every time I thought, you're not that bad of a guy, he just went and did something idiotic. And I'm just like, she shows no interest. Stop.
She literally shows no interest. She has done nothing to lead you on.
So you were friends because you knew there was another guy. All of a sudden, you're like, "Oh, I think I love you now." Though, like,
right?
There was no indication before that they were going to be a thing, except that they're of the opposite sex. I was like,
no joke.
The tip off, but like, it wasn't.
I no joke thought they were brother and sister for the first part of the movie and then I was like, oh wait. Oh, okay. I know what's going on here. Like, I was really frustrated by that because I kept like I wrote notes and I kept writing down, are they brother and sister? Are they brother and sister? Like, I even shorthanded it like bro and sis ? Like,
I would have preferred that. I would have preferred like either a platonic friendship or a sibling relationship type of thing. And I don't know, I just also couldn't help but think, because they kind of really failed on Felici's story, at least in my eyes, I was just like so bored of her story. I was like, show me the engineer. Let me see how they created the Eiffel Tower. Like, show me that.
I was like, can we see more of Victor? Because I was far more interested in Victor than I was Felici. Like, I was like, more Victor. Like, at least his story's slightly interesting and sort of like historic. Like, they're building the Eiffel Tower. I want to see that. Like, I don't want to see you dance in a ballet with a stolen identity. Like, that's not cool.
And not just that, but like,
Victor does like help her out a lot more than she like helps him out. Also, he gets hit in the head a lot, and I was very concerned that like I thought he was gonna get a
concussion.
It happens so much. Like you're a smart inventor kid, but not for long. If you keep hitting clocks and stuff, and people are attacking you with sledgehammers, like that's not gonna last.
This is how brain damage happens, you guys. Like,
I don't know. I don't know. I just also kind of wished that their roles were reversed. That the guy was the ballerina and the girl was the engineer. Because it's so... My biggest problem with this movie is that it's so predictable. It is so cliche. Like, every moment. Like, even the, you're not my mom moment. I was like, girl, you just met her. You just met her like a year ago. Of course she's not your mom. Like, get a hold of yourself.
Was it even a year? How long, like, what time span does this movie take place?
It's not been that long.
Because it seemed like it was just like a couple of days. Like, if it had been longer, like maybe they would have gotten some new clothes. But I was under the impression this took place in like a 5-day span. Like, they're like, day 1, escape from the orphanage. Day 2, run into your dream jobs. Day 3, do whatever it takes to manage to get day job. Like,
I also was really confused when Felici was like yelling at her, and she's like, I know you hate dancing, but I'm like, what? She never said she hates dancing.
Right? Why? Where did you get that? Like,
well, we know she's probably a famous dancer, and that was
she was.
Clearly had the hots for the cleaning lady, and it's like, if he knew she was like, if she was this big deal, how did she get to be like cleaning floors? Didn't she have any kind of networking after that? She was a big deal, and why doesn't he go like try to say anything to her until this girl? Like, if he likes her, why does he just blow her off till the end of the movie? It's so many things.
Maybe he didn't realize she was there. Like,
and I don't know if you noticed this. I don't know if you noticed, but the guys keep having this, like, the men had a lot of agency in this movie. Like, they had the final word in a lot of scenes. Like for instance, the teacher, he was always like, shut up to the women. And I'm just like, no, let them speak, you know? And I don't know, I found that they, like, it's the guys who took a very active role in this. Despite the fact that you had, like, the women were like, for instance, the, Odette, I think is her name. It's Carly Rae Jepsen's character's name. And she could teach her, but in secret. Like, and any type of, like, agency that the girls had was either, either it was in secret or it was under the watchful eyes of men. Like, it was never like, oh, I'm gonna take hold of my destiny. And if anything, things just kind of fell on their laps. Whereas with the guys, they actually chased after things.
Do you think they were trying to be, like, time period appropriate with that?
No,
that's
with those pop songs.
Maybe that's where they tried to be correct. They were like, maybe we can do it right here. Also, that just made me think of, I wonder when exactly the whatchamacallit was constructed in Paris, so I'm gonna look this up.
Like, you try to spread those out a little. I'm curious.
Let's see. Construction started in 1887. Okay, so they were on point with that. I'll give them that.
All right, great. I mean, if they were going to be on point with something, it might as well be the misogyny. It might as well.
Right. But also,
we not in style. The 1800s. Also, my biggest issue with knowing how old they were is because I would also need to know what the drinking age in Paris was at that time. Because those kids straight up went out to a bar and got they did.
And they didn't even, like, mask that either, because there's, like, I wrote it down too, because there's literally a point where Victor says, oh no, I'm taking her out for a sober good time. And I was like, a sober good time? And then, like, the next scene is them at the bar and they're drinking, and Felici looks like she's been having a little too many, and I was like, this is a kids movie. Like, why are these kids at the bar?
You know what the bar scene felt like? It felt like that Titanic, like, segment.
Yes.
It felt like they were trying to do that, and I was like, why though? Why?
Do you remember Titanic? Yeah, let's take that.
That made a lot of money. Let's see if we can do that again.
There was so much unoriginality in this movie, I felt, though. Like, between, like, the predictable storyline, like, it was obvious, like, of course she was going to get the part. Like, come on now. Like, I would have enjoyed the movie more if she hadn't. I would have enjoyed it more if she hadn't gotten the part. Like, and if she, even after, like, all that she had been through, like, I think that would have been, like, a much more, like, character building, like, and defining, like, thing. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Totally. But, because I have passionate feelings about this movie. But
I feel very shocked about how concerned it is.
Well, yeah, but there was, like, they rewarded, like, they even, like, went as far as to, like, reward her bad behavior because she, you know,
someone else, she, like, jacked her. What the heck?
Yeah, and they were like, oh, yeah, but you can still try out. And it's like, no, you bring the pain, like, you punish her for that. It, like, what does that say to, like, not just kids, but, like, everyone, you know what I mean? Like, you don't reward bad behavior. And I was very underwhelmed by, like, the whole, like, villainous characters of the, like,
God.
Mm-hmm, right?
Oh, God.
was like, what is this?
She was like, I'm gonna straight up kill you. And I was like, okay.
Like, and her reasoning is so stupid. It's like, you made my daughter think about things for herself. I'll kill you with my sledgehammer.
Like, also, there's no way that tiny woman could have carried that sledgehammer. I'm just saying.
Especially given that she's like probably... Yeah, but probably given the fact that she's also wearing a corset. So she's also like barely breathing and she's moving that heavy thing. Like, what is she doing?
It was a very unrealistic movie. Like, I think it's just my biggest flaw for it. And if the animation had been super, super pretty and like the scenes had been gorgeous, then I probably would have forgiven a lot of the flaws in the like story and plot line. But they just didn't. It just lacked that. It lacked everything all around for me, and I was just so much disappointment.
No, totally. I will say about the drinking, because Europe has a different culture when it comes to drinking, especially in the 1880s. Yeah. They weren't going to have like a drinking age. So while I understand why for an American audience that could be kind of like, whoa, what do you mean drinking? Especially given the history with alcohol here. But in other parts of the world, it's kind of like it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah.
So I if they were like 10, then yeah, I'd understand. But like if they're going for like 14, 15, 16 years old, then I also can see why it's not as big of a deal. But
I think, yeah, but like even in some of like, what is it, like the synopsis and like even just like the general like plot like that is up on the internet, they're like, oh yeah, like these kids are 11, and I was like,
oh, they're 11.
Okay. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow, that puts things in perspective. Wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere that they're supposed to be like 11 or 12, and I was like, oh, okay, like, and that's mostly like where I guess my problem with that whole like that whole scene or whatever, or those scenes, because they also show Victor in the bar at another point. But like, you could tailor that. Like, you could have tailored that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Because like, I can't imagine like any parent being okay with like taking their kid to a movie and these like 10-year. You know, I guess that's okay that they didn't like say how old the kids were, but at the same time, it's like, oh, you know, like I kind of just like nod my head at it, like.
Gotcha. No, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. But let's move on to something you guys also touched upon, which is Felici's characterization is so bland, and her motivations make no sense. A big pet peeve of mine is when a character simply does something for the sake of the plot. Like, that it makes no sense for them, like, and given what we've seen of them so far, it makes no sense, like, in their logic to do something. Yet, because the plot needs drama, they just do it. So, like, for instance, and this is kind of touching back on romance, but, like, she didn't need, like, the Felici we had met so far was so on it with dancing. I cannot imagine her wanting to like not train before an audition. Yet she goes to these bars. She goes really to on these dates or whatever. And I'm just like, but the Felici that we were introduced to at any point, like, she was like, I'm going to be a dancer. She was never even shown as being like super swept away by these guys. So for me, it's something that just really stood out to me. It was just how bland and kind of sometimes stoic of a character she is. In some ways, she only shows herself when she's dancing, and if we had more of it, I could understand, but we didn't have more of it. So what did you guys think of Felici as a character?
I think that if we had been given some kind of like background or like motivation for her wanting to become a dancer, then it could be, again, things could be forgiven, but you know, like, they don't even, like, say why. Like, at the beginning of the movie, all you know about her is that she wants to escape the orphanage and become a dancer or become a ballerina. And it's like, well, why do you want to do that?
But
like,
April, aren't you forgetting the dream where she's always remembering the music box, and then she finds out her mom liked to dance and holds her in her arms? That was her backstory, because her mom liked to dance. It's her destiny to dance forever.
But we didn't get that until the end of the movie.
I know. It's not good, but that was it. That was her motivation.
I wish that had been at at the beginning of the movie, because then everything would have made so much more sense. Like, okay, cool, I can understand you wanting to be a dancer, but there's no reference to that before that moment. You have to get all the way through the movie before you're like, oh, dancing's in her family. Got it. Like, no, you don't get any of that. Like, so you just get this bland character who's like, I just want to dance because, and it's like, because why? And she's like, I just want to dance. And it's like, you still didn't answer my question. Like, you're just telling me the same statement over and over again. And we get it, you're motivated, but like, there's no real motivation there. You literally just want to dance because that's what the story told you to do. So
totally. And another pet peeve of mine that I always have is when someone who's clearly the underdog, who has not spent the time, because ballet is a very technical dance. Like, it is something you have to train for years. Years. Like, your feet have to bleed. And I'm not saying that I needed to see her feet bleed, but like,
I did.
all these other dancers, I see them like being taken out. I see them like being like, okay, goodbye to you. And it's like, but they've been training for so much longer. And just talking about Camille, like, she should have been the person to win, and she should have spent.
The movie wanted us to hate Camille so much, but I just felt so damn sorry for her.
I know,
like,
right?
Her position sucks. And they kept being like, oh, like when she like was practicing and she's like, she's tired and she like doesn't have the heart because her mom's making her whatever. And like the other woman, Odette's like, oh, you know, like, that should be you up there because, like, she doesn't have the passion. I'm just like, girl, you don't know her life.
Exactly.
Like, she stays around in her room on those, like, heavy, like, lifting things, and, like, that's what she does all the time. I think she does deserve this. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, that's passion, and I hate when people don't, I don't know, I hate when movies, not just people, but movies in particular, like, really emphasize this thing where because someone doesn't invest the time, but has the passion, they should be the ones to get the role. And it's like, or get the winning, who win or something. I'm like, I'm all for underdogs, but you have to very clearly state, like, these guys, like, it's a miracle that this happens. It's a miracle that they actually succeed in what they do. Like, normally that doesn't happen. And Camille should have gotten the role, and she should have, like, I feel so bad for her, and I hate how they hate, like, people make you hate prodigies, because it's just like, no, prodigies are as incredible as they are because they put the time and effort. It's not because they're just naturally gifted. It's more than that, and I just hate how, like, movies continue to, like, do this.
Well, I think it's also very, like, assaulting in the fact that, like, because it is ballet, and everyone knows that that's not something that you just pick up overnight. Like, and so it becomes almost like insulting to ballet, because they're like, oh, look, this random girl can just pick it up and do it and make Swan Lake and everything's peachy keen. And it's like, no, you're discrediting all of the hard work that, you know, like, all of these people on a regular basis put into, like, mastering that. And, the bleeding the feet and taping up the toes and doing all of this and that. And, like, ballerinas literally have, like, disfigured bodies from, like, practicing and, mastering it. And so it's just like, you just literally discredited an entire, like, form of dance that's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. Like, what is wrong with you people? Like, I appreciate a good underdog story as well, but, like, this isn't not a good
underdog story.
Yeah, it's not a good underdog story. Like, if you had applied this story to something else, then okay, yeah, sure. But, like, ballet, like, come on now. What is wrong with you?
Also, this just reminded me of that part where, like, when they have to, like, do the splits and, like, get off the ground. She, like, literally puts her hands on the two other girls' shoulders to, like, hoist herself up. And then the other girl, like, can't get off the floor. But it's like, well, technically, neither could she, though. She, like, grabbed onto people. So she probably should have gone home. She wasn't ready.
I think the other girl actually hurt herself, though. I think that because I remember, I think there's an actual thing where you can get stuck doing it if you don't do it properly. So I think that was a problem. But I agree that she shouldn't have even, like, if the girl can't do a split, then what was she doing all this time at this class? Like, she should have been able to do it, period. So I don't know. It's just,
There's
And
so many.
there's that scene where she just jumps, where she's just training to jump, and it's like, ooh, a feather falls. Now I know, and it's like,
Yeah, like what?
I figured it out.
Just pick it up right like that one afternoon, and you've just nailed it. Okay.
You know, it's like, I understand, like, she's probably been dancing on her own for all this time, but it's just, there is a technicality to ballet that I just don't understand. Like, it's just not easy to pick up and not easy to pick up quick. So the fact that they make it seem so, and the fact that she just doesn't respect she's not committed, the fact that it's been shown that she isn't committed, given her dates and whatever, it's been shown that she isn't the most technically able. She just has a lot of heart. I don't know. It's just, to me, it sends the wrong message to people. And it's like that. I don't know. It just kind of, again, Victor to me is the most interesting character, even though he annoyed me so much.
Yeah,
I was
really,
like,
I
liked him. I just hated when he was trying to push himself on her. Like,
yeah,
I was like, enough.
Yeah, that was when he was annoying, but I enjoyed his storyline more than I enjoyed her storyline. Again, like I've already said it, I would have rather had seen like more Victor versus more Felici, like, and what was going on with him instead of her, because there was literally nothing to the story. Like,
had no stakes. I mean, and that was the thing, because I kept thinking that Odette, like, I'm like, oh, maybe she had like a training related illness, like maybe she pushed herself too hard, and like it's gonna be explanation. And she's gonna tell like Felici, like, especially about that like jump thing, because like you're not ready for it. I'm like, oh, maybe she's gonna push herself too hard, and it's gonna be this lesson about like, you know, like you need to care your body and stuff. It's a dangerous profession. It's like, oh no, it was just like a fire, but like whatever, like. That was a long time ago.
It was a fire.
It was a fire. That's all they said. And they just like, I feel like that was a missed opportunity too.
Yeah.
It totally was. And I mean, we kind of touched upon the villain, Regine Le Haut. We kind of touched upon her, but what was that? That was insulting for an audience.
She was not a character at all. She was just like pure evil for like, what reason?
For no reason.
I don't understand. I was like, okay, you're a restaurateur. Like, you have a highly successful restaurant. Why do you want your daughter to be a ballerina? Like,
did you want to be one? That was not
exactly. I didn't.
Yeah. Again, the importance of background stories. Like,
man.
Or maybe like they could have done something interesting where like, I don't know, she knew, what's her name? She knew Felici's mom or something like interesting.
Something.
Do
any
something.
way to tie them together. Like their whole beating and her becoming the villain is so like happen chance. Like it's boggling. Like, oh, because your daughter just happens to be, and I don't know, like, and what motivations did she have for pushing her daughter so hard? Like, I know we already like asked it, but it's like, but really, like, why? Like, why are you doing this? You have a business to run. Don't you have more important things to do? Like, you're obviously successful enough to buy your daughter's way into an audition for Swan Lake. So, like, what are you doing? Like, how are you making money? Is your husband running the business? Like, I need to know these details.
There's just like so much left out and so much we have to like try to figure out ourselves. And also like the music box, like I kept thinking like, oh, it's gonna be like an Anastasia thing where like she finds out like who her mom was, or like
really
someone's gonna
yes.
It's like it was like she was born to, but like no, it wasn't there for any reason except like, oh, there's a dancer in it. Also, your mom danced with you and your baby. You remember that? It has like no other point, and it gets broken like twice. It's always around. Like, why was it such a big? Like, why was it there? What was it symbolizing? Except that she likes to dance, which we already know.
Yeah, but they didn't even, like, pre-establish that. Like, if it, again, background stories, you guys, they're so important. If you're a filmmaker and you're listening to this, please take heed and make all of the background stories. I will put up with it. Like,
and they don't have to be bluntly told. They don't have to be, like, hit you over the head with a backstory, but it would help just to sprinkle a little bit on, especially in the beginning, so we can kind of figure out where everyone lies, like where everyone, like their motivations. Like once that gets blurry, you know that you did something wrong.
Yeah. Well, in this film, like I felt like we were very much like dropped into the story. Like there was no like, oh, this is Felici. I don't even think I remember hearing her name until like 5 or 10 minutes into it. And I was like, oh, that's the main character. Got it. Like, but there was, I felt like we were just literally like, we were plucked out of darkness and then thrown into Paris in 1888 or whatever it was. And, and then we just went from there. And it's very like, it's maddening almost because I just wanted to know all of the things and I didn't.
Yeah, it's a very thin story. That's my problem. It's a very thin one. And I know that, the ballet sequences are pretty, and certain character designs are cool, but like the animation isn't, very stand out. I know this is going to sound bad. But hear me out. It kind of reminds me of like, I know that there was some like Barbie movie that came out once about the Nutcracker. The animation kind of reminded me of that, like the quality of it. And I'm just like, look, I'm not going to rag on you for doing the best you can with the budget you were given. But, is like computer generated 3D like that? Like, wasn't that necessary for your film? You could have simply, what 2D would have, maybe that would have been cheaper and then you could have gotten a better animation quality. Like, did you have to do the 3D? The 3D? I understand for the ballet, I get it, but big picture. Well,
the other thing that mostly bothered me, and this is because, like, what I wanted to do when I grew up, was I wanted to make movies, and specifically I wanted to do animated movies and 3D animation movies, and so for me, like, for this to be your premiere film, for it to come out with this quality of like 3D animation, like if it was 10 years ago and it had looked like this, then you know what? I would have been blown away, but it's not 10 years ago. It's now. And it just looks bad whenever you're like, this is our like poster movie, like this is our feature film, and it looks like something Pixar did 10, 15 years ago. It's like the game has like upped the ante at this point. Like I always think about what is it, have you guys ever seen Book of Life?
Yes.
Okay, so that was done by a small animation studio here in Dallas. Like I applied for a job with them, and like that kind of situation. And so like that movie is beautiful. It is gorgeous. Mm-hmm. But like, and so I tried really hard to not compare them to that because again, it's a small like company, super tiny, not maybe 100 people if we're lucky, but it's like you have to think about like what your competition is in terms of movies, and you have to find a way to stand out. And this movie didn't stand out in any way. The only reason why it's standing out right now is because I saw it and I was so unimpressed with it that like that's a bad impression to leave on somebody. Is a bad, it's like you want to make a good impression, like a good first impression. And this is my first impression of you as a studio, and I'm not satisfied. I'm not happy. I'm not entertained. I mean, I'm entertained by how much I didn't enjoy the movie, but
yeah, that's a really good point. And I think like that kind of sums up the biggest problem with this movie, because like I don't think it did want to stand out. I think it was trying so hard to do all the possible like conventional tropes possible. It just like did itself in. Like I think that's why she had the whole like love triangle nonsense that didn't really go anywhere. And why like the mom came out of nowhere at the end, because like, oh, we needed like a big conflicting fight to like have a resolution. Like there are so many moments that felt so like slammed in there because they felt like they were supposed to, because that was like how movies are supposed to be made, air quotes. And I think that's like why it was so bad in a lot of ways in terms of plot anyway.
Totally. I agree. It's a cliche. It's like when you look up the cliche in the dictionary, it's the picture of this comes up. And that was a cliche example, but that just solidifies my point that it's predictable. It's predictable. It wasn't original, and it didn't offer anything to a conversation, which is a great segue into my next point, which is, what is this film trying to say? Like, what was the purpose? Like, what was the message? Like, I don't like comparing things to, like, Pixar and Disney, because because those are so, like, they basically have the best of everything. They have the best talent. They have the best of everything. They have the money. They have, I don't like comparing it to that. But at the same time, it's like, okay, fine, I won't compare it to you, but like we've had just many films, not even just in animation, that have done this story of following one's dreams and going after whatever. What does this film add?
That must be the thing they want us to get out of it, but it's just like not very compelling, and it doesn't feel earned because of all the things that happen in the movie that contradict that feeling earned. Yeah, totally. I think we'll end it here. I think, unless do you guys have any clothing? Do you guys have any closing thoughts? Any clothing? Are you wearing anything? I will only accept tutu for an answer. Do you guys have any closing thoughts?
I mean, I wish this movie had been better. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel a lot better that I wasn't the only person who didn't enjoy it, or was very unimpressed with it. But hopefully you, the audience member, feels or reflects my feelings. Or if you don't, tell me why this movie was awesome. I'd love to hear that.
Please tell us.
Convince me. They would have to try big, thick paragraphs full of proof to prove this movie to be good. I'd be very curious.
But do it. I urge people to do it. I'm curious. Give me a thesis about this.
I would love to be discredited for this movie. Like, I would love for someone to step up and be like, this movie was really great and here's why. And I would love to listen to that. And I would be very open to that. And maybe I was just, I don't know. Maybe I went into it feeling like, oh, this movie's not going to impress me, but I don't think I approached it that way. So.
No, I don't think I just knew enough about this movie to feel about it.
Yeah, well, and the other thing too is I think I'm gonna sit here and kind of pat myself on the back, but I didn't go into it thinking, okay, this is going to be a Pixar movie or this is going to be a DreamWorks animation movie. I kind of knew that going into it, But again, even the movie that I sort of compared it to was another small studio movie. So and that was even after the fact. I was just like, you have offered me nothing, except taking away these 90 minutes of my life.
Yep. Dang, April.
Michelle, do you want to add anything? Any closing thoughts? Anything? I'm sorry. I don't know. Anything you want to add before we finish?
I don't know. I just keep thinking about the two. There were so many character things that just felt like they half did it and then forgot about them. Like the blonde guy who's into her. I'm like, oh, is he evil? No, nothing.
And then he just disappeared.
After he throws her on the roof, I'm like, oh, is he trying to sabotage her? No. And then I don't know, that random guy who's I don't know, the orphan catcher dude who he's like, oh, she's sad when she comes back. He's like, oh, she lost her spirit. Guess I'll help her escape the orphanage. Why does he decide she can be it's just so many characters do the weirdest stuff, and I don't understand it at all. I screamed so many times during this movie, and it was always because something logically made no sense to me, and I wasn't having it. Also, I bet that training school costs a lot of money, and that instructor dude just decided to waive her fees when he found out she was an orphan. How does that make sense? There's just
you should have billed her.
They should have billed her.
I will say, the one of the many things that are kind of unforgivable, the one thing I do want to leave out into the universe, and this is a question that I don't need answered, but why isn't there an understudy at the Paris Opera House thing? Why don't understudies exist? Why is that not a thing? I'm sorry, I thought that was a thing. Why isn't there another girl that could have been getting ready and done it, and they wouldn't have been losing their minds over, where's Felici? Well, where's Felici? She has a track record of being late, so you should have been prepared.
That's a good point. Actors have understudies. Why wouldn't a big...
But here's the thing.
Have one.
Ballets do have they do have understudies. So again, another important element. Also, ballerinas would never wear new shoes for a performance. Never. I do remember that. because they'll always want the shoes that are broken in and that they've danced in before. Like, they would never wear new shoes for a performance. So
I could understand if they were like Odette's old shoes. So if she had broken them in and then she gave them to her, I could understand it that way, but they didn't say it, so...
Old. How do those shoes even fit her? So many... No.
I don't know, but yeah, I think we covered everything. I think we're
this movie.
Yeah. I did not expect to care so much going into this conversation. I will say that, because I thought I was pretty like whatever about the movie, but I actually have more emotions about it than I thought I did. So yeah, we'll end it there. Find out all the info on this podcast at overlyanimated.com. Support us via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to all of our current patrons, and thanks as always to our Patreon executive producers, John, Ryan, Steve, Alex, and Andy. April, where can people find you outside of the podcast?
Twitter would be a good place to find me. I'm at Fourth Month, just exactly as it's pronounced. So you can find me there. Oftentimes I am retweeting all of our podcast things, or all of the Overly Animated stuff, as well as offering my random opinions about life and movies and TV shows. So
awesome. Michelle, where can people... Yeah, as one does. Michelle, where can people find you?
You can also find me on Twitter at PurviewPro. I have YouTube channel, Purview Productions. You can check it out if you want. Yeah, I do not like promoting myself, but it is a good habit to get into. I recognize.
I'll help you. I'm all about it.
Thanks, April.
And if you want to add a face to my lovely voice, you can find me on YouTube as well at the Be Real Movie channel. Warning, my face. Thank you for listening, guys. We'll see you next time.
That's the plus point.
Bye.
Bye.